Welcome friends, welcome to the second take of this video. Today we're going to go over the development diary released for Crusader Kings 3. In this diary, Paradox goes over 2 new systems that they're adding to the game. And, as it said, this is the second take. This time my mic is unmuted. Okay, so in this development diary, the Paradox goes through 2 new systems they're adding. One is for the players only, and one is for the players and the AI. Alright, we're just going to dive right in here. While being a queen or emperor is great and all, sometimes it can be a bit of a drag to manage all those vying subjects. Sometimes you just want to rule a small corner of a mightier realm and enjoy the benefits of an emperor's protection in exchange for your service. This right here, it brings up a great point. New players should look at potentially starting out as a vassal. Now, I know that the game directs you towards Ireland, but I actually think that if you go for something like Tuscany or another vassal underneath the HRE that is established, this is a better way to start the game and really learn the game. So this is 100% a valid statement, and while not directly related to what they're saying here, is an important aspect of the game that is a good way to start out if you're looking at starting as a count or a duke. While a duchess doesn't have their own royal court, they can interact with their lieges via 2 new decisions. So this is important here. The royal court is only going to be, from what I understand, with kings or queens or emperors and empresses. So you will not be able to interact with this part of the expansion unless there was a system like this, because you don't have your own court. Okay, so the first thing that they're going to bring in here is petition your liege. Now, this is a player-driven system only. The AI cannot drive the system. Okay, so player vassals can approach their king or above ranked liege with a petition and at any time through a new decision, providing they have enough prestige, there is something they can ask for, and they haven't done so in the last 5 years. Okay, so this brings up a couple points here. The first one is that it seems like this system, you are not able to petition a liege if they are not your direct liege. So for example, this applies to me that if you're a count and there's a duke in between you and your king, you will not be able to petition that king. And of course, if you're a duke and you have a king in between you and an emperor, you would have to petition the king, and you would not be able to petition the emperor. The other thing here is there is an interesting thought that I had with the petition liege when I first read through this. Through further read through, it's not as brutal. But in information security, we have this concept of malicious actor. And a malicious actor sometimes will pretend that they're there for good purposes. However, they are actually doing things maliciously to you. And based on what I'm reading here, you could be a bit malicious. You haven't done it in 5 years. It won't let you be that malicious. But if you're in a multiplayer scenario and your liege is at a critical point, you could theoretically be a malicious actor and initiate a petition. Force your liege to be distracted during those multiplayers, because usually there isn't a lot of pauses during the multiplayers. So bringing up your royal court could be quite detrimental if you're trying to make other decisions at the time. You could be quite a malicious actor here in your liege's realm by initiating this process and preventing them from, say, commanding their armies. Okay, so the petitions that they list here, now further down they're going to go through that there are 14 of them, and we can speculate through this blog that on top of these here there's additional 2, so we have 8 of the 14 available options. So council appointment, grant council seat. This is super important. One of the frustrating parts about being a vassal, you have no direct way of requesting a seat on the council. The AI does. The AI has the negative opinion modifier, and this is very important system of the game, but as a player, you don't have that similar opinion. So sometimes you're a powerful vassal and you're not on the liege's council, which is a bit of an issue. So I'm really looking forward to the petition and being able to force myself onto the council. Pay off your debt. This is awesome. This is going to be really critical if you ever get into a situation where you have a couple wars that you've lost, or you've had to purchase mercenaries. There are different situations where you can get yourself into not only debt, but a lot of debt. and having your liege be able to pay off your debt is really awesome. Now, one thing that I speculate with here is settled debt. The cost is probably not 100 prestige. The cost of this is probably based on the amount that you pay, and how reasonable your liege figures this request is probably also relates to how much gold they have. If they have 600 gold and you ask for them to pay your debt and you have 500 gold worth of debt, that's probably going to be pretty unreasonable. Now, if you only have 100 gold with debt, it's no skin off their back, right? So this is really a cool option that gives you another path to getting out of debt, beyond dying. Dismantle faction. Okay, this is probably the first thing that everybody went to. Wait, if we could dismantle our factions, this would be awesome. Having the ability for your liege to dismantle a faction could give you an extra year to stabilize your realm. If you are, say, a female ruler, like I had in a recent playthrough, that just became a ruler within a Catholic society, you're immediately going to have issues. And in that same playthrough, I had 2 quick deaths of my previous rulers because I was legitimately trying to peeve people off with those rulers, and those two deaths caused some other benefits. So combining some other negative opinions. So combining the negative opinions from those previous rulers, the negative opinion from short reign, plus the negative opinion for male dominated, this caused a instant rebellion. So that caused an issue. Luckily I won. But this gives us an option to say, okay, let's hold off these factions, because in a couple of years, more than likely those factions will come back. So you have to do something to actually assuage and solve your underlying issues of why those factions exist. Realm peace, this gives you a bit more control. For those that don't know, your liege has the option to force your realm to be in peace. This will force a peace between you and another vassal, the way that it reads here. This is nice. This could get you, like, if your Tuscany and Lombardy is attacking you again, this gives you an option to basically stop that war. A couple of the other ones they had discussed here is over here, you have the ability to petition to underwrite a church. Instead of you paying for a church on a county, you can get your liege to pay for that church. That is really nice, especially when you're strapped for gold and you're trying to build that second castle within your county, and you need to build your church and city first. Now, another thing that the liege will also help with, ranging from helping convert your lands. That is cool. I like to convert all of my lands when I'm ruling to my same religion and my same culture. Just help stabilize the realm. Now, this could potentially, based on the way that I'm reading it here, either instantly convert it, probably not. More than likely what I'm thinking is that this adds a buff to that conversion and speeds it up. And of course, if you have a terrible bishop and they are doing a bad job at converting the religion, get your liege in there to help, because yeah, we've all been there with the terrible bishop that we cannot change out, and we can't murder because our intrigue is not high enough. All right, this will allow you to ask for things directly without resorting immediately to war, which will remain a last resort when you need to topple a king who is tolerant of border gore. Clearly proves their legitimacy. I haven't had many issues with an AI allowing border gore. Usually they're pretty good at, as long as they can, transfer those vassals and transfer those holdings, they will. Now, if Lombardy has moved into Romagna, then there's not much they can do there, but they at least try to prevent the border gore if they can. But this gives you another option. It is up to your liege whether to receive a petitioner, though outright refusing will damage our relations and be seen as a slightly tyrannical. So since there's a player, relations don't really matter. So unless they're bringing in a system that has a meaningful opinion modifier between you and your liege, other than their opinion of yours, then I'm not sure what this exactly means or why it matters, because they're the only ones that have an opinion of you. You don't have an opinion of them. But the slightly tyrannical could destabilize the realm, which is a bit of an issue. I would like you not to refuse my petition and asking you to hit that like and subscribe button. The request itself may also be rejected once heard, and the odds of acceptance by the AI will be tipped more in your favor if you make reasonable requests and maintain a good relationship. After all, your boss doesn't want to be seen as unreasonable. That's a good point, right? If you want to raise at work, it's probably a good idea that your boss likes you. And the same here. And as we discussed before, if your request is unreasonable, just like if you ask for a 20% raise, probably not going to happen. Now, what could be really cool with the paying off debt system is if you dip yourself into debt, petition your liege, go through the system, get them to pay off your debt, you're basically swapping your prestige for gold directly. It's kind of like asking the head of faith for gold, where you swap piety for gold. Kind of an interesting system that you can do there, and you can exploit a bit if you want to min-max your gold production. And you don't have to worry about your prestige, which, let's be honest, is you get pretty high up in prestige with most rulers towards the end of their life. If they are astute, your liege may also ask for something in return for granting your petition, such as favor hooks or a bit of gold. A counter you can of course reject, leaving you both empty-handed. One thing that I'm glad that they didn't include here is the ability for them to ask for a holding, the ability to ask for a county. This is an event that you see every once in a while in the game as a liege, is that your vassal will offer to give you a county in exchange for some gold or reduced taxes or something like that. And it's a kind of weird system and a weird event that you never really want to do. And the reason why you never want to do it is because you grant the request, you give them the reduced taxes, they give you the county. However, every case that I've seen this, they're de jure ruler of that. They're like a duke that owns that county. So they immediately have a negative opinion modifier of you, and they're going to ask for it back. So you basically given them gold or reduced taxes, and you've gained nothing but negative opinion from the AI on it. So it's not really a great event. It's an immediate pass every time I see it. So I'm glad that they did not add this here, because if the king asked for your county and you gave it to them, the way that the AI works, within a year or two, as we discussed before, they would immediately give it back. So it's kind of an exploitable system if they do it that way. If a liege is not being very forthcoming, you can also attempt to convince or outsmart a trusted advisor as a last resort at the cost of some prestige. This is cool. So the king isn't the only person that matters. You can go in and talk to their advisors, talk to the people around the king, their council, and be able to convince them, who then in turn convince the king to do it. You will need to pass a skill check in a relevant area, usually against the liege's counselor, or have an ally near the throne. The king's wife, perhaps, whose assent will force your liege's hand. That's kind of cool. So there's a bit of an intrigue system here. Now I wonder if that's going to move into the hook system, or if there's going to be an event dialogue where you can, if you have a friendship with the king's wife, will immediately petition on your behalf. Another thing is, how does the lover thing work in there, right? If the king's wife is your lover or soulmate, is it going to be the exact same as a friend, right? So there's a bit of interesting things. Now this next image didn't work, but if you go over to the forums, you can see this. So this is what the event system will look like. So basically it goes through your couple options here of who you can convince, and then gives you the skill check that you're going to need to take for both of them. And it looks like the standard skill check system that we have in the game, which you can exploit with your wife, which I recently released a short on. If you are a liege, you will currently only interact with this content if you happen to have another player as your vassal and they make their own, no doubt outrageous requests. Now, I've only seen a teamwork-based vassal-liege relationships in multiplayers. I don't play multiplayer that often, but it's rarely an adversarial-based role. The second decision that they're going to discuss is for both the players and the AI. So in the next system, you can pay homage to your liege. Now, this could be really cool for stabilizing your realm or just getting a bit of extra renown that you need. So homage represents the formal pledge of loyalty between a feudal lord to their liege and provide opinion, renown, prestige to both parties, providing the occasion goes smoothly. So this leads me, actually, before I move on, this leads me to an interesting idea. In both of these events, we're talking about renown that comes out of these events. We may have a really good source of renown through Royal Court. This may make it so that having Royal Court, the Royal Court expansion, might almost be required if you want to really min-max your renown. Now, and the reason I say that is if every single event that you're going to in the royal court is somehow affecting your renown, this will allow you to get those legacy perks really fast. And if you can get those faster, you can get a massive advantage in the game. What else about royal court is going to affect our renown? And are we going to really explode the amount of trees that we can go down if we properly manipulate the royal court system? And then all of a sudden, all of our strategies that we had from before are refocused, right? Maybe knights aren't as important anymore. Maybe conquering is a secondary thing, and more importantly is getting those legacy perks, right? And instead we focus on, instead of stewardship to get all those knights, we focus on diplomacy to get all of those, all of that renown. Now in here it says choose a gift or a homage gift. Demonstrate submission, give nothing. Give a hook, give a contract obligation, and give gold. Now this could be really cool. And if the AI, for example, can raise their taxes, that gives you an excuse to go back there and manipulate their contract, right? Maybe you don't want increased taxes. Maybe you want to have forced partition on their realm, right? That could, just so that when they die, their family doesn't continue to get more and more powerful, right? They continue to split their realm. So that could be really cool thing that you could do here, where you could manipulate contracts via the AI paying homage to you. Now, one thing I didn't see in here is interaction with the artifact system, and I hope that's just not included here. I think it would be a big miss if they did not have the artifact system in here, where you could actually gift an artifact to your liege, because that was a big part of the feudal society is gifting, right? You came to a royal court and you gifted a sword that was in a famous battle or something like that, right? So I think that it would be really a really big miss to not include in the pay homage the artifact system. So I do hope that that's there, where you can choose an artifact to give in. The decision costs some prestige to initiate. It's only available for feudal and clan vassals, and only can be undertaken once per liege. If the ruler dies, of course, or changes, you can make a new pledge or of allegiance to their replacement. Okay, let's unpack a lot here. There's a lot in this sentence. Okay, so makes sense. It's only for feudal and clan. This is homage to your liege in a feudal society, so it doesn't really make sense to be in a tribal society, even though there could be something akin to it in a tribal society. That doesn't really fit with the purpose of the system. So maybe this gets expanded to tribal in the future in a slightly tweaked system, but yeah, it definitely makes sense that it's only feudal or clan. Only can be done once per liege makes sense, just like modifying contract can only be done once per vassal lifetime. Okay, now here's where the manipulation starts. If the ruler changes or dies, you can make a pledge of allegiance to their replacement. Let's say that you have a ruler that's about to die, and they, of course, because they're at the end of their life, they probably have a ton of prestige stacked up. What you can do is go in here, give them a promise favor hook, right? Not that powerful. There is some stuff that they can do with that. Do that. Then you can go in there and do a murder scheme with them. If you have enough intrigue, you could really manipulate the system and just keep on killing your liege, right? Every time your liege leaves office, you go and you do you give another obligation of a hook to there. And then all of a sudden, I'm not sure if it shows us it here. No, it doesn't show us the renown, but let's say that's the 50 renown that we got from the, similar to the petition. If it's 50 renown, every time you did that, you could basically farm the renown via the pledges, right? And you're basically giving up nothing, because every time that your ruler dies, that hook is gone, right? So you're just farming renown by giving up hooks and then killing the person that you're giving a hook to. Really interesting manipulative systems that we can build out of this new system. Okay, there is a great deal of pressure for such important events to go well, and not all lords and ladies are made for public speaking. This is critical because it adds a buff to diplomacy from what I read to this, right? Diplomacy becomes more critical in the game. Right now, it's probably one of the two weakest, if not the weakest lifestyles that you can choose at this point. And having a buff there would be nice. Right now, you're only going down there for farming renown, for vassalization, or groom to rule. Those are really the only things that are of value there. And there's other more beneficial things. Do you really want a vassal coming in there that you didn't handpick, right? Or would you rather conquer their territory and handpick them? Now there's options to deal with them, but again, having a buff to the diplomacy lifestyle would be really nice. Things can go awry in a variety of ways depending on your petitioner skills. So it's not just diplomacy. However, the diplomacy trees do have some options to balance out your skills. And so going down diplomacy would be very beneficial for you. And other factors. Have you put in the hours to learn Norman? Interesting, right? So this tells me that there are other systems coming in to prepare for attending a court, which would be kind of cool. Have some minor decisions that you can go and practice your liege's culture, right? Or merely practice a few lines the night before on the road to Windsor. So pretty much every test that I took in high school and college, right? As a bad student. Passed. Don't worry, I have my degree. Well, your shot, empathize with your stammer, or imitate it in front of the entire Persian court. Will you forever be called the clumsy by your vindictive sultan simply because you lost your balance once? Right? And so there is some negatives to actually doing this, right? And attending the courts. I would assume that these things can happen on any time that you go to court, right? So it's going to be a very interesting system, and we're going to have to figure out how to properly balance attending a court. If something does go wrong, it's up to your liege to decide if they will let it go. Giving your rival the opportunity to mock your clumsiness might not be the best idea. So this is interesting because right now, I don't know if other players have this, but every time a rival dies, basically I say, yay, my rival died. I had no clue who you are. Recently, in the latest playthroughs I've done, I've noticed who my rivals are because I'm trying to peeve them off. I'm trying to get them to try to murder me. And that is the only time I've ever noticed my rivals. It is a very underutilized and under-thematic system within Crusader Kings 3 that I think could use some love. So I hope Royal Court actually brings some love into the system. Regardless of the outcome, both your dynasties will gain a small amount of renown, and the rewards are increased by offering gifts in addition to your pledge, such as contract changes in favor of your liege. So this development diary, the two systems that they introduced are really cool. Some of the nuances of what they discussed here, I think also are going to add some flavor to the game and some love to some desperately needed systems, for example, your rival. Now, I really hope that they tie in artifacts with your pledges, because I think that would be a miss if they didn't do it. But that is going to be it for today. If you would like to check out my video on the previous development diary where we discuss minor titles, you can click on it here. You can also join us over on Twitch, where we're working on platinuming CK3. We are almost done. We have 2 achievements left. We are currently working on the one where your lover prevents your murder, and the Saga in the Stones, which both of them should be done shortly. I'm working on those, and yeah, we should have the game platinumed, ready for the expansion shortly. But that'll be it for today. Everyone, have yourself a good night, good morning, and good day wherever you are.